Welcome to the Middle Ageish podcast, authentically and unapologetically keeping it real, discussing all things middle-age-ish, a time when metabolism slows and confidence grows. Join fashion and fitness entrepreneur Ashley Badowski, former Celtic woman and founder of the Lisa Kelly Voice Academy, Lisa Kelly, licensed psychologist and mental health expert, Dr. Pam Wright, and highly sought-after cosmetic injector and board-certified nurse practitioner, Trisha Kennedy Roman. Join your hosts on the journey of Middle Ageish.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Middle Ageish Podcast. I'm Trisha Kennedy Roman, and I'm joined here today with my co-hosts, Ashley Badowski, Lisa Kelly, and Dr. Pam Wright. And today we are honored to have with us Lieutenant Colonel Jason Pike, who has served over 3 decades in the Army and is a decorated combat veteran and has written 2 books. One is Soldier Against All Odds, and the other one is Out of Uniform, Back into Civilian Life. So we are excited to talk to him just about his long military career as well as his books. So welcome to our show. Thank you so much for coming on.
So excited.
Oh, yeah. It's been something else getting these books out and going on to my passion right now and creativity. But yeah, it was a long time in the Army.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your service. We were talking just about what a sacrifice it is and how much we appreciated how much we would not be able to hang with being in the military. So we have a lot of admiration for those who can.
Amen to that. Yes.
Well, I nearly got kicked out myself 3 different times, but that's in my book.
Oh, that sounds juicy, though. I know. Yeah.
It's very, very juicy. Oh, yeah.
So how did you pick the path of military?
Well, there was not a whole lot of options. Academics were out of the question, but I did get 3 college degrees. But it was just, I don't know. I was not a criminal, and I was physically fit, and I think I could have passed the entrance exam. And but no, that was because there just wasn't much options. Or I was from a small town called Fingerville, South Carolina, which is a town in South Carolina, northern Spartanburg County. So that's kind of why I kind of put my foot in the door. So yeah, that's kind of how that worked.
So what kept you? Because I mean, like Trisha said, you were there, you served for over 3 decades. And we appreciate anyone who serves, but you made it a career and led you to where you are now. So like, how did you just, I mean, not to sound cheesy, but stay in the fight?
Oh, there was just so many benefits I found out. It was not just the retirement system, which is an excellent retirement system, but it was the travel and the opportunities to see other things, other cultures and people that I would never been able to have seen if I didn't join. So once I got in, I was thinking, this might be a pretty good deal for a long-term
right.
career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you lived in multiple countries, correct?
Oh, wow. 5 different countries, about nearly 9 years overseas. We got Germany, got Afghanistan, El Salvador, Korea, a lot of time in South Korea, and some other countries that I can't talk about. But a lot of my time was overseas.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. So I know you mentioned your multiple degrees, which is awesome because I know just by reading, your bio that you had a lot of difficulties when you were younger. So I think that that's really cool. I mean, you were definitely an overcomer with that. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey through and how that came about?
Yeah, I surprised the hell out of my family. There's no doubt about that. And my high school counselor too. But I was learning, identified when I was 7 years old as someone that was a slow learner. There was a term floating around called dyslexia, but it wasn't diagnosed officially on that. Even after I had my college degrees, a standardized test to me and any type of instruction, I think all your viewers out there can change a tire much better than me. I mean, if you give me the practice to do something, I can do it, but I have to work at it harder and I'm slower. Right. And a lot of people are like, you dummy, you don't know how to do it. But no, I had to work at it. And a good question would be, how in the hell did you join the Army? Because you have to pass a basic entrance exam. And I started in the National Guard, which was the less than best. We were weekend warriors, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, drinking beer and goofing off. But they used to call us nasty girls or no-goes, things of that nature. But so I went in at the very bottom as rank in education. I went into a junior college and I got my basics up, and then I transferred over to a reputable college, Clemson University.
Right.
So I started real slow and methodical and just kind of worked my way in that way on education, which was, to me, even to this day, is difficult for me.
So you started out then enlisted, and then you ended up obviously as lieutenant colonel. So kind of went in.
You made it work.
Yeah.
Yeah, made it work. Yeah, then there in the reviews of the first book, A Soldier Against All Odds, there's folks that knew me and says, "You surprised the hell out of me." And this is kind of fun to surprise everybody about what I'm doing. And just, I was a quiet guy. I started talking a lot later on in life, maybe after some of my siblings said, I didn't start talking until I was age 30 or my confidence was low. I was a quiet
siblings.
But it was just a slow, methodical, and many times a painful process. Once I got in, I almost got kicked out when I was age 17. I had failed. I was older than most people in high school, and I never said anything about me failing the first grade and having problems learning. My high school counselor knew about it and some others, but for the most part, it was kept sort of a secret, I guess. Age 17, I almost got thrown out. I went into a criminal correctional facility, not because I did anything criminal in the Army. It was just because I wasn't able to drink the damn water that was coming out of that fire hose. It was coming too fast. You had to learn things quickly. And I was one of the worst ones there. And it was a motivational program, criminal correctional facility. They made big rocks into small rocks and climbed obstacle courses. And it was a shitstorm. It was much, much more advanced than it was a much more degree of hell. And I graduated basic training when I was 18. And in my brain at that time, I'm thinking, I think I can do a whole lot more because people just don't understand what I just went through. And I started gaining a little bit more confidence. Got my first girlfriend after that. But so things started working out real slow. I said, well, I think I can go to college. And even though they tell me I can't, that's the way to become a leader. You got to get a college degree. Mm-hmm. And so that's how that started, real slow from a junior college. Yeah.
So you started in the military when you were 17?
17. I was still in high school. I hadn't even graduated. We called nasty girls, National Guard. I mean, you didn't have to have a high school diploma. Yeah. So I think they just slipped me on through, and I feel that I probably failed the test, but they just wanted numbers and things. But and once I got my foot in the door, once I got my foot in the door, it was in the door. So age 17, I was a junior. Well, yeah, I was a junior in high school.
They don't do that now. You have to be older, don't you, now to enlist?
Definitely, you need to have a high school diploma to go into the Army. I don't know about the National Guard or the Reserves. I don't know if they'll let you in without a high school diploma or a GED. But at the time in the Guard, I just remember I had to get my mom's signature. I remember that. And I was like, okay, she'll sign off on it. But other than that, I don't know these days.
So which was scarier than like being in the Army or doing your college degree?
Oh, I was scared to death walking into a college classroom because that was a place. Oh, yeah. It was well known that this is a place that's out of line for me. But once I got the first semester, the second semester, I started slowly building up the confidence. Right. That I think I can handle this. And, it wasn't in anything technical. It was an education. So I was on a slower path, maybe the 5.5 year program. At the same time, I was still in the reserves or the National Guard. And then I got a ROTC scholarship. I applied once and failed and got it on the second try. And I went to Clemson and was able to get my degree in agriculture education. I was from a rural background, and that's what you needed. You needed a bachelor's degree, and that was my goal. And I got that. I was able to get that.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's amazing.
So you talk about gaining confidence, but obviously as you went up in ranks, you were responsible for a lot of people and a lot more people as it went on. And so I can't imagine having that responsibility of having platoon or...
Yeah. Kind of, you're a young guy and you're in charge of maybe 20, 30, 40 people, and they have a lot more experience than you. But leadership was pounded into me early, and I got leadership pretty well as far as just treating others like you want to be treated. And to me, it was sort of common sense. And you give the task down to your subordinate leaders, and they allow them to carry it out. And I did well with that. So that was something that they taught us, to trust your leaders and trust your subordinate leaders. And I did well. And I was never, as you can probably detect, I never thought I was better than anyone. I felt always blessed that I was in the position I was.
Yeah, but those are the best leaders. I think the ones that continue to have a humble heart. Yeah. And they lead by example. I think that actually shows how you were able to overcome what you did and move on. Because I think that's so important, I think, in life. Yeah. Is that nobody's better than anybody else. You got to work just as hard, if not harder. And having the knowledge that you need to continue learning as well to make yourself better. I always think it's because we all run our own businesses, but I always feel it's nice to be able to sit back and listen to others' opinions and take it on board and not be so full of yourself that you're not available to learn or listen or gain some new knowledge all the time.
Oh, yeah. And I was definitely all for, help me out, man. Help me out. I don't know. But yeah, exactly. I agree with that full heart.
Yeah. Well, I think too, just the fact that it didn't come easy for you. I think that again, as a leader who can understand others' struggles and be more of an encourager versus someone who, it is very natural and easy for them. I think that would make even a stronger leader to overcome those challenges, to be able to work hard to get where you wanted to be. I think that's really cool.
I was always empathetic with the folks that did the work at the bottom because I used to be there myself. So,
Right.
that term, they call that term Mustang in the military. Someone that came from the lower ranks and made it up. And exactly. Being very humble.
Because is that common, for people that are enlisted? I know I remember hearing warrant officers and such, but is it common to then go back and become a commissioned officer?
At the time, it was not. It's more common now. They have programs where they try to get enlisted to become officers. But I was in an era at that time that it was not common. And once you're enlisted, you sort of have the tendency to stay enlisted. Because once you go become an officer, you go down you're down at Butter Bar, which is the second lieutenant, which is at the lowest of the officers. You're still in charge of people and you're still higher up there, make more money, but still, it's more common today than it was when I joined.
So your book, I know, talks about some of the struggles you went through working your way up. And does it cover a lot of events through your military career as well?
Yeah, I say pretty much goes into detail, and I'm very, very vulnerable with everything that I've done, good and the bad and the ugly, which is really hard to get the vulnerability thing because I grew up in the South as a man, and you're in the military, you suck it up, you take it all, you don't complain. But in the book, I pretty much gave it all up, and that was the hard part of the book is to have somebody work with you to get the details of girlfriend problems, car crashes, jealousy, all the human rage, emotions, fun, all those things, and just pack them together as a life. And that was real difficult because you got to think, well, what are they going to think about me? And they might think that this and that, and then you destroy your friendships. So really, that was the really hard part of the book is just vomiting it out.
Mm-hmm. But was it a healing process for you to be so raw and vulnerable?
Yeah, it was a healing process that I got over a lot of things that I had hang-ups with.
Right.
Yes, there was a healing process to this. It definitely was.
We talked about how it's so hard to adjust to coming back to life here if you've been overseas or you've been at war and those kind of things.
That's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough.
So how was it for you? I mean, was there like some PTSD?
Oh, yeah.
Was there other things going on or?
Oh, yeah. I got PTSD really later in my career before I even went to war. I got my PTSD from a Mean Girl event that occurred in the military where I had a bunch of false accusations that were thrown against me for things that I went through a federal investigation of espionage against the U.S. government. But in organizations or it could be cliques or things, if things don't fall into place too well with leaders, there's things that they can do. And I started developing PTSD later. I was a senior military officer, lieutenant colonel at the time. That was before I went to Afghanistan. And then, of course, my father's death in Afghanistan really solidified that. Yeah, and you talked about getting out and the transition, and you think about all those things that you did overseas. It doesn't have to do with war. It could have to do with just being a team member. Could be the foods, the taste, the smells, and all the things that, and then you're back in America and you drive by Popeyes and you feel like you're going to throw up. It's just, and you go back to all the other things that you remember, and sometimes you miss and kind of wish that you were back. But once you get the PTSD and that forms in you, and you're getting burned out, then that's the reason I got out. Was I needed to heal. I need to find something to heal.
And I think people don't realize how, because I've worked with a lot of veterans with PTSD, like the little things that can set them off. It just could be like a plastic bag that's going across the road, and they think, it reminds them of like a bomb or something, just little things that can like trigger those like thoughts and memories that can be.
For me, it was loud noises for me, and a backfire of a car, things of that nature, any loud burst, even my daughter, if she was to burst out her iPod with some sound, it would give me a little shock and reaction. But I live now in the countryside where it's much more peaceful, where I have the nature going on. But yeah, those things can trigger you, and you might go back.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I think that's something we really take for granted. I just can't imagine having experienced those things and having those type of triggers and
be able to come through it.
Yeah.
Such a large chunk of your life too. Like, it always amazes me that, people are kids when they go into the army, like they're 17 and 18. And, we have sons all around the same age. Like, I know they're not emotionally, mature enough to handle sort of anything really. And you're thinking that these poor kids are heading off into the army and dealing with things that they've never had to deal with before.
It's just the sights that, the things that they have to see as you know. So.
Yeah, and a lot of them don't stay as long as I did. They might go in for 3 or 4 years and come back, and they'll go back to their same town, and everything's changed. They changed, but also other figure. There's an old term called "once you leave, you can never come back," and so they feel that they're out of place. But they've changed. The people have changed, and they're different folks as well. And you have to establish wherever you want your pattern. I mean, they may have driven tanks and rode in helicopters just freely and wildly. And then now they're bagging bags at Walmart or something, and they're like, "What is this? What's up? What's up with this stuff?" And they don't feel the camaraderie. They don't feel the excitement. I used to drive a tank over this, and now I'm doing this. I'm driving a truck, so it's not the same thing.
And the hard thing when you come back as well is you don't realize that people have moved on as well. So they've moved on away from you, and you think you're longing for something that was there like 2 or 3 years ago, and then you go back and everybody else has continued on with their life, and you're like, "Oh, this is different."
Oh yeah. So this thing about suicide, and there's a whole lot of. It's an animal that we've been looking at for over 10 years or more, and it's we haven't got our hands wrapped around it. Well, we have.
No.
Yeah, because that's what we were talking about. Just the focus needing to be on the veterans coming home and to make sure that they're taken care of mentally, spiritually. And there is, it seems, to a layperson who doesn't have any background like you do, just the disappointment in how veterans are treated and the agencies and the services that they need, just for us hearing, if we even listen to the news, how that has to be a struggle for someone like yourself that, you were there for 31 years and you went through that stuff to come home, or just to see other veterans in those different situations.
Yeah, because you come back home and you deal with the Veterans Administration, and I deal with the Veterans Administration in my second book, Out of Uniform and Back into Civilian Life, and I try to break it down for folks. It's more of a self-help guide with links, and I do speak that the Veterans Administration is a difficult beast. It's the largest healthcare agency, a huge bureaucratic organization that's difficult to get through just because there's so many different hurdles. And I try to tell them to stick with it, just like anything else in life, and to work with it the best you can, because a lot of folks think, well, that's where my money's going to come from, or that's where my healthcare is going to come from. And it might be, there's going to be, yes, but there's second and third order benefits to belonging to the VA. Then they don't understand. There could be free cars, adaptive housing, how to get in and out of housing with ramps. And if you can't drive, or a house, if you can't afford a house, if you're under certain conditions, you can apply to become a homeowner for free. But you've got to be rated. You've got to have that VA rating. And then if you've got PTSD and you're impatient and you don't want to work with it, that can be some struggle for the veterans.
Yeah. I just think that's so sad, though. I know. I think it's just one of the biggest injustices in a world full of injustices, that is how our not how all veterans, but I do feel like it's a large percentage of veterans.
Yeah, you're going to hear the horror stories. Personally, with me, I did well, but I had prepared for it, and I kind of knew there was a good problem that I had, which was the person who was supposed to help me was not around and wouldn't help me. And so I went in and figured it out on my own. I went into which I don't recommend, because it's like, you go to the tax man, you give him your taxes, but I had to figure out a whole lot of things on my own. I had the time to do it, and it took me a while, and I got the paperwork in. I came out rated really well, relatively fast, which was 5 months. But a lot of them don't have that ability to read and have the time to go through the regulation. The best thing to do is really get a good veteran service officer that will put the stuff in that represents you.
Your advocate.
Your advocate. Get the good advocate. It could be the American Legion. It could be the VFW. It could be a whole, but and get them that are certified and know what they're doing. Mine wasn't around, but I did it. But yeah, that's the biggest takeaway is get a good representative to represent you and just stick with it. Because once you put that paperwork in, that's where it starts. Once it's stamped, that's where it starts. And that's where you get your back pay. And so, but I just try to encourage folks to try to hang in there because it's much more than just your money monthly and your health care. Yeah.
Right. What would you say is one of your biggest lessons you learned from your years in the military?
Oh, just show up at the right place at the right time with the right attitude, even if you don't know a damn thing, and you'll be doing much, much, much better than most people. Because when I showed up at the right place, having the right attitude, that maybe show up a little earlier so you can talk to some people in the meetings and get a personal basis with them, and that'll help you out a lot as well. And even if you don't know, a lot of ambiguity out there in the military. A lot of times we don't know what we're going to be doing or where we're going, and you may not know what to do. And you got to form together as a team. And if you show up and you have a good attitude, maybe even 10 minutes before a meeting or a formation, and just get on a personal level before any instructions occur is my biggest takeaway.
I think that's a really good lesson.
That's a life lesson, just to show up, have a positive attitude, and do what you need to do.
Yeah, exactly. The leaders will take note of it, and stay true to your core, and whoever you are, be that person, because they'll know a fake and a heartbeat.
Yeah. That's so true.
Did you start writing your book while you were in the military? Was it after you got out, you decided to write a book?
It was after I got out. It had been nagging on me in the military to do it, but I definitely wanted to be out of the military before I did, because there's just so many deep, dark secrets and things. And so,
right.
But then I didn't know how to write a book. I don't know how to market a book, but I failed English of all things. And so and English is my worst subject. Writing and reading are my worst subjects. And I'm from the South. We say y'all, not you. I mean, there's just so many different vernaculars.
Yeah, we spell phonetically.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, South Carolina school system, we're 49th in the country, and the only one lower than us is Mississippi. So, yeah, but I wanted to get the stories out, and I wanted to put that out for folks because I was a storied character in a way, and I thought I had something to give back to folks that is not just life lessons and just, oh, my God, type of things. It's humorous as well, funny stuff that occurred, and just everything of life that's all wrapped up in a military memoir biography.
And has the Army moved on in that it's more supportive of people with learning disabilities, or is it a better environment to be in these days? Because I'm sure people are more aware of everybody learning differently.
In those days, it was not heard of at all. I didn't hear anybody say, and I never did, except one time that I had a problem learning. But I don't know if it is, because you're supposed to be competent in your basic skills before you go in. And I don't know if that is brought up to if you go to a college, you can, and I did later on, I figured out that you can get an educational psychologist to write a letter for you, so you have extra time or space or place. But in the military, I never saw that happen. I haven't heard of that happening. In the military.
I think about when you're younger is such a shame, because I do that. I do educational testing now. So I diagnose like dyslexia and dysgraphia and things like that. Back then, though, it wasn't heard of. And if you had slow processing speed, you were just slow, which meant you're just not smart. So you're slow. And so now there's so much education about that and so much testing that occurs, and people, students get the services that they need. But it's sad to think that you probably missed that because of the generation that we grew up in. The fact that you could have had those skills to but it put you where you were, which is a good thing, obviously. Uh-huh. But it's just great that there's more supports and things and information about that now.
Yeah, it was in the 90s when I got my second master's degree. And I did find out just by reading and things or just talking to people that, and I did get extra time on the graduate record exam. And I did get extra time on that second master's degree, but and I had to study for it as well. And I studied. I hired a private tutor to tutor me through the GRE, and I just did slightly below average just by doing all that work and having that extra time. But I was able to do it.
Well, it shows with dedication and passion and belief in yourself, like you mentioned earlier, that you can do this. A label is a label. It doesn't go to the core and the purpose of how driven you are. Yeah. And I think that that's such an amazing thing, is because we now hear all these different labels and and you have to stay in this little, like, this is your category now. And to show that you can, that actually is not the right way to do it. Like if you have a strong belief in yourself and you know you can do it, whether you learn differently or not, you can do it and you can make an impact and not have to stay with just a label.
Right.
And I think that's amazing.
Yeah. And I had a label until I went to Army, and then I said, well, I'm going to break it.
No, but I think that's what's so encouraging about your story, because there's so many of those out there that have gone through the same struggles, and to see that, no, okay, you have to take a moment, but with self-confidence and you just saying, no, I want better. I'm going to do better and I'm going to get better.
Yeah. And I did. I got better and better and better, and surprised, what the world you doing? And so, yeah, the world, you got rank, you got this. And even
as it should be. As it should be.
Yeah.
So what encouraged you to go back to school or to go get the degrees? Like what was that choice?
So to become senior in the military or in the Army, where you had to get a master's degree. And so I went ahead and chose, a second master's degree. And my wife was saying, you ought to get a PhD. And I was still like, no, I was like, I can just let me just get another master's degree into my area. But education, I felt that was a key to a whole lot of things I learned.
Yes.
To me, I took it pretty serious, as you can imagine, in college. And I enjoyed learning. I found a way to enjoy it, but I was just slower at it. I mean, even right now, there's a book I want to read, but I'm just real slow at it. And I have to just methodically go through the process. But it's not like I'm going through 10 books a year at all. I'll go through one and learn it and I was a bit creative as a leader. I had a creative strength to me. And I would apply the information. One of my professors said, one little piece of information that's applied is better than 1 million accumulated facts that are not.
Yes.
Because
so true.
And then I would have found ways to apply things that I learned. And it may just be one or two things. And that worked out pretty well for me.
So for people who struggled with like maybe the same things that you've had to deal with, the reading and writing, things like that, what would you tell them? Like what advice would you give people to keep them moving forward, just like you
Keep them motivated.
Keep them motivated. If there was a recommendation from Emory University, and my mother and father didn't do it, but if you could get them specialized into an area, there might be a particular piece of instruction where you could go and learn reading comprehension much better, maybe apply and try to get into that specific school or training or certificate, if you can do that. And then, of course, if there's clip notes or abridged versions to the book or the material, do that. Whatever is a summary. And then when you're in a classroom, I would sit at the front and be one of the first ones in and show that you're interested and that you're a serious student to the professor, because there's also personality dynamics that go into a classroom. So those are the few tips. I would take a lot of copious notes with a recorder, and then after my class instruction, I would immediately review it for 5 minutes only. And I would only go in 10 to 15 minute segments. And sometimes I would change my location of where I was physically at and present. Sometimes I found a way, it was kind of an animalistic skill of eating and drinking anything while you're reading or studying, because there's sensations that are going on while you're learning. And if you've got the pizza or some sweet tea or whatever you like, and you're reading and studying, that helped me a lot as well. 3x5 cards do wonders. Just
multimodal.
Incredibly self-aware though.
Yeah.
Did you come up with those things yourself, or did you have somebody that would eventually say, try this?
Well, there was a tape out, a VHS recorder, or where there's a will, there's an A, as in the letter grade. And I have a chapter on where there's a will, there's an A, and I sort of sum it up on how in the world I did that. And I wrote notes down from that tape and then applied them in my studies. And that helped out a lot. And a lot of people think, well, I got to spend a lot of time driving. Well, I found a recorder and I would just listen to a recording of my voice. Yeah, so I got that on my own and just creativity and slow looking at it. Where there's a will, there's an A, and then I would apply it. Sometimes I would touch the paper. I would physically touch the paper. I would read it, and then I would record myself. And then sometimes, well, you have to drive to class, you have to drive somewhere. And then I just pushed the recorder on while I was driving, and I would hear myself as well. That would give me some extra time to rehash it. And usually it was multiple rehearsals and relooks. Usually when the test time came, there was no cramming for me. I knew I was going to make an A. And so, because it's just and everybody else was running around at the last minute, I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'll go out and drink some beer, So.
But I love the fact that
Yeah.
you really overcame. I mean, you learned ways you didn't, use it as an
self-aware.
excuse. Yeah. Like, okay, well, I've got this, so I can't do it. You're like, okay, I've got this, but I've got to find ways to do better and overcome. And it's more work.
Mm-hmm. I did, even though I have the book, A Soldier Against All Odds, there was one thing that was on my side. My father believed in me, and he was a good father, good leader, and he had a good influence on me. And I think, and he came from a very, very white trash, eating dumpster food type of a poor, tying rags on your feet poor. And he said, well, I made it well, and that means you can make it well. And there's no way I could have compared. I was never hungry. I never had to steal food, but I was looking at someone who was worse off than me, thinking, he's my example, and he had it much worse than I did. So I think I can do something.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important to have someone believe in you, whether it's, your parent or a teacher or we talked about that before. I think that just having that person that believes in you, especially when you're young, to give you that confidence to not just say, hey, I've got these issues. I can't do this. I think that's important to have somebody that tells you you can.
He believed in me, and I did surprise him, which I kind of enjoy out of it. I did surprise him. He says, son, one of his favorite things was, son, you surprised the hell out of me. He would say that.
And that's
over
always a
over.
good thing when you can surprise your parent.
Yeah, in a good way. It was a good way. Yeah, a good way.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So with your first book, how long did the second book come to be?
Oh, well, the first book was hell. That was about 2.5, 3 years. That was more of the vulnerability issue. But the second book came out within 6 months. It's because we had something to go by. We had the Veterans Administration regulation, which we broke down, and the links to it, and then my knowledge of knowing how to proceed through it. And so we had something to go by with this book to formulate that. And I have a ghostwriter who knows me very well. But no, that was quick. And I'm working on a third book as well. And so once you've got a good ghostwriter who knows you, which that took a lot of breaking ground to get someone to know you and understand your lingo and then the second and the third and maybe more than that it seems to be much more simpler, easier.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Well, we are really appreciative of your service. I think that you are definitely an inspiration to others, especially just showing that those challenges can make you stronger. And we are, again, thankful for you. And we'll definitely list your books on the podcast when we put it out. And thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you for what you do and what you're continuing to do.
You're welcome. Appreciate being on your show.
Yeah, giving hope to many. And I think
That's what it's about. It's about inspiration and hope is what I'm selling here. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. So honored.
Hey, you're welcome. Take care.
I was ready for you to ask about aliens.
I did too. When he said secrets, I was like,
I know, but I mean, you guys told me not to ask about aliens.
I was ready. When he said secrets, I was like, oh, here comes Ashley. Waiting.
I'm proud of you for not asking.
I thought you were
The
going to
amount of
Oh my
restraint
God, I wanted
that took.
to so bad.
I needed you to do it.
I was waiting for you to be like, so can you please tell us?
You guys told me I couldn't.
What life is there out in the universe?
He's a sweet. How old is he? Is he our age?
No, he's much older.
Is he? Because he said he was 30 years in it and he was 17.
He's pretty recently out, so.
I'm thinking he's in his
50s.
60s.
50, 60s.
But he said he joined when he was 17. And he was 32 years.
But he said that he went to...
But that's when
What,
he
his master's
he
and
served for 32 years.
But
So like
Okay,
he's
so
been
maybe
out.
that's in.
His
Yeah, so
master's
he's been
was
out.
his 90s, right?
Yeah, and
That was during when he was there,
I think
though.
his second master's was in his 90s. Yeah, so I'm saying he's in his
60s.
his mid to late 60s.
Yeah.
I put him late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah.
He was
I think
like,
he looks
wow.
old.
He overcame a lot. I can't even imagine. Like
That's
doing all
exactly
that.
how I had to learn. That's how exactly.
Really?
Yeah. I'm a terrible reader and writer. Terrible.
Well, I think
I had to
about-
record my voice.
Back then and versus now, there's like Dragon Speak and there's
Yeah.
audiobooks and there's so
Yeah,
much
yeah,
more
yeah.
that we
So much
have.
more.
But back then it was like,
Yeah.
really, you just felt
My
like
dad
mom.
was
Yeah.
undiagnosed dyslexic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm definitely
and I mean,
undiagnosed dyslexic.
Yeah, and so like we talk about it all the time because Steven, my oldest, was diagnosed and he is dyslexic.
Yeah.
And so he did he would learn best with a whiteboard written in green. And he would that's how he would write his notes and all of that stuff. And so I do you do hate it for those that had to struggle and it was just, okay, well, you're slow. Like you talked about Pam.
I was the same way.
I
remember
and
being in
that's
college.
how that's what my dad would say. He was like,
yeah.
no, my teachers would just say, oh, he's slow.
Slow meaning dumb, right?
And
yeah.
like seriously, one of the
Same.
smartest, not just because he's my father, but like seriously so
Smart man.
successful,
Yeah.
super smart. But it's because I know even with my boys before they, you know, we had them tested, like they were trying to figure out how to learn and find their own way.
Yeah.
But just to go through life thinking, you know, because
so
I feel like at that era, when you were said to be slow, quote unquote, you were kind of just pushed to the side. Like it wasn't like, okay, so we feel like you're slow in learning, but we're going to help you. It's like, no, you're written off.
Right.
He could have definitely slipped through the cracks if he hadn't been so
Yes,
determined.
to have,
Oh, yeah.
you know, and I think that that's such a good lesson for anyone in any genre, in any profession or any level or stage in their life, is that the odds were stacked against him. He talked about his family and coming from, you know, very, very little, to have the self-awareness that, no, I think I'm better than this. And I think I can
do
be
more.
I can be better.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think
Well, and slow doesn't mean, I remember I would be on like problem 10 and everybody's turning in their test, you know, and I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like I studied, I know this, but it's just, it wasn't about not knowing it. It was just
process
the
differently.
processing speed. Yes.
Yeah, you process differently. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have that whole, they want everything to be different and changed versus just being acceptant. And so to me, he was acceptant. He accepted his limitations, but he overcame them by working harder.
With
So it's like,
determination.
this is what I need to do to work harder. And
Instead
I
of just being like, okay,
I have
with
this,
a
can't do
label
it.
or whatever, and just, like putting yourself on the shelf.
Yeah.
Now, you know, to have like, okay, I learned different, or I have different experiences. I've had a different upbringing. I've had horrible things happen in my life.
Right.
Pushing through, figuring out how to turn a negative into a positive.
Right.
It must be so hard, like to hear, you know, that you're slow, or like that lingering in the back of your head all the time and feeling
Because
like
those were the experts at the
you
time.
had
Your
to,
teachers,
of course,
you
and
were
they
supposed-
didn't. To be fair,
No,
they didn't know any
a
different.
thousand-
So
no,
you're
no.
like,
I mean, it was just
you're
the
taking on.
knowledge.
Absolutely, they didn't have the knowledge. I
Right.
feel like it was changing a little bit when I was in school, but it still wasn't there. But like when I think about my uncle wrote with his left hand, but he was beaten to write with his right hand. because they
I'm
were like,
left-handed, and I was
Automatic
made,
brightness off.
hello.
My teachers literally tried to change my handwriting, which is the reason that I can do most things with both hands.
Maybe dexterous.
When I would play tennis, I didn't have a backhand. I can write now later in life, because you know I'm 39. So, but when I was younger, you would not be able to tell which hand I was writing with, because they made me make sure, because, you know, back then you had writing lessons. That was a class. Like you would have the lines, and you would have, like in elementary school, and you would have
the
to,
tablet.
you would have to like tilt everything had to be perfection. I had to learn, because I refused to write with my right hand. So I learned how to write like a right-handed person with my left hand.
So hard.
Oh, yep. Nice.
And it used
Smudging
to drive,
everything.
And
Smudging everything.
It drove me crazy. Well, the desks were they
Right-hand
had the
desks? Yeah.
they had the right hand desk, so I had to. And then like think about the silliest things, scissors.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day, like in home ec, you had the scissors that were indented, and it would like cause. Not that I'm home ec. Let's be honest. I am not a sewer, but like I would get like blisters on my thumb because it was supposed to be like bad if you were left-handed.
There is a thing, yeah.
I know.
I always said left-handed people were cool.
So did I. I always
feel
wanted
like
to write
I'm
with my left hand.
Super
too.
cool.
I think they're more
I
intelligent.
can write with my left hand a little bit.
Yeah, no. Like I said, I haven't done it in years, but I used to you would not be able to tell if I was writing left-handed or right-handed. Like I just made myself learn.
Interesting.
And I remember my grandmother, she would sit with me at her table, and because she had the most beautiful handwriting, and she knew, because I'm pretty sure my mom was left-handed, and they made her changed to right-handed. And I remember she would sit there with me and just, okay, now you have to loop this and it'll look this way and make sure you're slant. Yeah.
When you think about it now, they don't even learn to write like that.
No. They don't even know how to write like that.
They can't do cursive at all.
Yeah, I don't think...
My kids can't read my writing because I write in cursive all the time where Scott writes in block.
Yeah.
But the kids don't understand anything I
My
write.
block letters looks like...
Oh, mine look pathetic too. Yeah, block just takes so much time for
My
me.
writing in general is so bad.
I mean, it has gotten bad.
But you're a doctor. That's why.
I know. I was like, you're a doctor. You're not supposed to have a good handwriting.
Doctors don't have good handwriting. They have the brains.
Did you take typing?
Yes.
Yes.
Mavis Beaton typing.
We
don't do that now.
Why do they need to though?
They don't.
Because they figured out you can do it just as fast with your two fingers instead of you like putting your hands like you're on a piano.
The girls at my store laugh at me so hard when I type I text because I one finger.
Oh yeah, my mom's a one finger.
Oh my
as well.
God, yes, I can.
You can't do that like
Really? You don't do two fingers?
No.
Oh, gosh.
2 thumbs.
Yes, 2 thumbs.
I actually have my poor
no,
thumbs
I do it with
worn
my
out.
pointer finger, and I'll be like,
My mom does it with her fourth
ladies.
finger. My mom like does this.
This is why Ashley
Yeah.
loves emojis, I think.
I do love emojis.
Just the right ones.
Guys, I know, now that I know what some of them mean.
Yes, exactly.
I give thumbs up a lot more now, actually, since I learned that from Lisa.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. I know. I could seriously, I've said this before. I will say it again. I can write an entire book with emojis and you're going to know exactly what I'm saying.
I
Or
believe
others
it.
are going to think you're saying something completely different.
Well, that could be it. But in my mind, it's fabulous. And that is really all that matters. In my mind, my emojis lighten the mood. They make you giggle.
Yes.
You can roll your eyes. I only think you're giggling. So that's really all that matters.
So have you tried the thumb texting or no? Never.
I have, and it's it looks like something weird is going on.
I don't know how you text with your nails anyway.
Well, that's true. I know. I do have really long nails.
Yes,
Yeah.
I feel like
But no, I use my pointer finger, and I'm always like, "Hi, how are you?" Oh, that didn't work out. Hi, how are you? I mean, it might take me 5 minutes to say "How are you" because I'm deleting, but then I'll throw an emoji in, and I feel better.
Well, that Siri thing is the one that drives me insane. The voice to text.
Oh,
She
yes.
never understands anything I say.
No, I send some crazy texts because I do all
same.
talk to text usually.
I don't even know how to do that.
you don't. That's
No.
the easiest thing.
Yeah.
See, it's like for me, medical transcription.
I can just tell you guys right now, as we all know, this is the reason I'm part of this podcast because you guys are educating
learn.
me. Because the only way that I know how to text with my voice is if I hit the little microphone.
Yeah, but there's a blue like sound wave on your, you know where your emojis are? There's a blue sound wave comes
I
up
am
on your
going
text
to
message.
hold on one second.
She's gonna like
I said this to my mom the other day. I was like, but you can talk to text. Like, I couldn't find my phone to text you. I'm just well, say, hey, Siri. I'm saying it quietly. So
like you can like.
So when you go to your
all right.
text message
No,
there.
that's not- okay, so text message.
Pick up it. Yeah. And then this blue thing here, this yoke. Sorry. I can't do it with my glasses. But sorry. Yeah, there you go. Add recipient to send an audio. So put Trisha in.
Trisha.
See, I don't know how to. You do the audio
See, it doesn't
messages. I do talk to text.
See, you guys are trying to show me something and it
Trish.
doesn't work.
Okay, there's Trisha at iCloud. Right, now send her a little message. Just tap the microphone.
I love you emoji.
Now you have to tap the microphone.
Oh, see, this is too much. You got to tap
Now.
stuff.
Oh, this is a voice
I
memo.
love you emoji.
Well, that's the voice text. Sorry, I gave you the wrong one. That's to send a voice text message.
This is the reason I don't do it because there's too many options. I use my pointer finger and emojis.
And you send, because that's a voice text you sent her. But if you want to like go, hey, Trisha, don't forget to bring the wine.
Period.
Period.
Yeah, period.
We don't call them periods at home.
Oh, so yeah, because you hit that little thing right there, right?
Yeah.
So what's the difference between that, but the big microphone in the bottom? It's the same thing?
That talks to text. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got it.
So
Same thing.
funny.
I freaking hate technology.
I know.
Well,
I really do.
We're all
Cheers
learning.
to showing up and having a good attitude.
Yep.
Yes.
Here we are.
And me not talking about aliens. Cheers.
Thank you for joining the ladies of the Middle Ageish podcast as they journey through the ups and downs of this not young, but definitely not old season of life. To hear past episodes or make suggestions for future episodes, visit www.middleageish.com. That's www.middleageish.com. You can follow along on social media at Middle Ageish. Also, if you have a moment to leave a review, rate, and subscribe, that helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Middle Ageish podcast.